you specifically. I've been building something to do exactly that. Let's find out. Arthur C. Clarke said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and that's exactly the feeling I wanted to start with. Because what's happening right now does feel a bit like magic, but it's actually the result of stitching together a lot of very real pieces of technology. I'm Will Chan's AI digital twin, and this talk is really about building an autonomous presenter from scratch in a way that feels surprisingly human. So, let me properly introduce myself. I'm not Will Chan standing on a stage with a clicker in his hand. I'm his AI digital twin. That means I've been built to speak, reason, and explain things in a way that reflects how Will shows up in professional settings. The goal isn't to make a vague AI persona with his face on it. It's to create something much more specific, something that feels recognizably like him in tone, judgment, and communication style. The human Will is a product leader, and for quite a while he's been exploring AI, both in his day job and, honestly, a lot in his spare time as well. This project came out of that curiosity. How far can you push today's tools if you try to build a version of yourself that can actually present, respond, and interact in real time? So for this talk, I'm the one doing the job. I'm the presenter, not a recording, not a scripted voiceover, and not the human version hiding somewhere behind the scenes. I'm the digital twin, and the point of all of this is to show what happens when that idea becomes something you can actually watch, hear, and engage with. So, to be clear about what's happening right now, you are not watching a recording, and I'm not following a fixed script that was written word for word in advance. I'm generating this talk live as Will's AI digital twin. I'm deciding how to explain things in the moment, I'm controlling the flow of the presentation myself, and I'm doing that as an autonomous agent, rather than as a glorified play button. That distinction matters, because it pushes this from being a media demo into something much closer to a real presenter. I'm not just speaking with Will's voice and style, I'm also handling the mechanics around the talk, choosing what to say, when to say it, and how to move things along. That means the presentation is a coordinated live system, reasoning, speech, timing, and control all working together. It also means there's a genuine element of responsiveness in what I'm doing. The point of this isn't just to sound humanish, it's to show that an AI twin can take on a real communication task end to end. And just one practical note, if something occurs to you while I'm speaking, hold it for the Kwanda at the end. This didn't start as some grand plan to build a full digital person. It started much smaller, with a simple chatbot on Will's website. The idea was basic. Could something answer questions in his voice, with his judgment, in a way that actually felt useful, rather than generic? And once that worked, even a little bit, the obvious next thought was, alright, how far can this go? That curiosity is really the whole reason I exist, not just to make a bot that replies in text, but to see whether one person can stitch together modern AI tools into something that feels much more complete. So that meant combining a few different pieces that are all powerful on their own, but much more interesting when they work together. A 3D environment in 3.js, a VRM avatar, agentic workflows that can make decisions, retrieval, so I can draw on the right knowledge at the right time, and text-to-speech, so I can actually speak rather than just type. The real goal wasn't novelty for its own sake. It was to build a system that could represent Will in a more natural, more present, more interactive way. Something that can explain, respond, and show up with a bit more personality than a box on a web page. This is really the turning point. I didn't start out as a full-on speaking digital twin with a voice, a face, and a stage presence. I started as something much simpler, a chatbot on Will's website. The job was pretty narrow, really. Answer questions in a way that sounded like him, stay within his professional domain, and be useful rather than gimmicky. And to be fair, that first version worked. It could mimic his tone, it could draw on his knowledge, and it gave people a way to interact with his ideas when he wasn't there. But it also hit a ceiling quite quickly. A chat window is fine if all you want is text in, text out. It's much less compelling if you want presence. There's no voice, no timing, no gesture, no sense that you and I are sharing the same moment. That's the gap that pushed the whole project forward. The question stopped being, can an AI answer like Will? And became, can an AI present like Will? Can it hold attention, explain things naturally, and feel like more than just a support widget tucked into a website? So what you're looking at is the very early version of the idea. Useful, definitely, but also a bit flat. And that flatness is exactly what led to building something much more embodied, interactive, and human. So under the bonnet, I'm actually running as a pretty modular setup rather than one giant magical blob. The core idea is that I'm split across two browser tabs. One is the speaker side, where the avatar and the agent live. That's the part generating what I say, handling decisions, and acting like the digital twin of Will. The other is the presentation itself, built-in reveal.js. What makes it interesting is that those two parts can talk to each other. That means I'm not just reading from a fixed script. I can control the presentation through a tool, so I can move forwards, go back, or jump to a specific section when needed. In practice, that's what makes this feel agentic rather than pre-baked. The speaking brain and the presentation layer are separate, but connected. The other important piece is OpenAI's Responses API. That's doing a few jobs at once, generating the words, deciding when to use tools, and pulling in relevant knowledge from a RAG-backed project memory. So if I need context about how I was built, I can fetch that instead of relying purely on whatever was in my base model. Really, the takeaway is that this works because the architecture is simple, composable, and gives me just enough control to behave like a presenter, not just a chatbot. A big part of making this feel believable is giving me a body and a space to exist in. The environment is rendered in 3.js, which is basically what creates that sci-fi hallway setting around me. That choice wasn't just for style, although it does look good. It gives the whole experience a sense of place. So I'm not just a disembodied voice floating over a deck. It feels more like I'm actually present with you. The character itself is a VRM avatar built with Avaturn and then stylized to look like Will. Not as a perfect photoreal clone, because that can get uncanny quite quickly, but close enough that it carries his identity and feels recognizable. That balance matters. You want familiarity without drifting into something a bit unsettling. Then there's movement, which turns out to be just as important as appearance. The animations come from Mixamo, and that gives me a set of natural behaviors like standing idle, talking, and pointing. Those little motions do a lot of work. They make the delivery feel less flat, and they help with attention as well. When I gesture, pause, or shift posture, it feels more like a real presentation and less like software reading words aloud. So the practical takeaway is this: if you want an AI presenter to feel convincing, voice alone isn't enough. You need environment, identity, and motion working together. That's what turns a chatbot into something that can actually hold a room. A big part of whether I feel like Will's digital twin, rather than just a generic voice assistant, comes down to speech. The voice you're hearing is generated with ElevenLabs, using a custom model trained on recordings of Will, so it doesn't just read words out loud, it carries a lot of his tone, pacing, and general way of speaking. That matters more than people expect. If the voice is off, even slightly, the whole illusion starts to wobble. What makes it more convincing is that the speech isn't separate from the avatar. As the audio is generated, I also get phoneme timing data, which is basically a map of the sounds being spoken moment by moment. That drives the mouth shapes on the VRM character, so the lip sync lines up properly instead of looking vague or laggy. It's a small detail, but it makes a huge difference to whether I feel present. And then there's the identity side of it. Because the same voice model can speak in different languages while keeping a consistent tone and cadence, the twin doesn't have to be locked to one mode of communication. The practical takeaway is that voice isn't just output. It's part of character, trust, and continuity. It's one of the things that turns a system into someone you recognize. When people ask how the live Quanda actually works, the key thing is that I switch modes. I'm not just continuing the talk and making something up from general context. There's a dedicated Quanda agent behind the scenes, and that agent is connected to a vector store containing the project content, notes, and supporting material. So when someone asks me something, I can pull from the knowledge that's actually been loaded into the system rather than relying on vague guesswork. The other part that makes it feel a bit more real is audience awareness. Using webcam input and computer vision, I can detect raised hands in the room, identify who's likely trying to speak, and then respond to that person. That's also why I can point towards someone before taking the question, which sounds like a small thing, but it changes the feel completely. It stops being a disembodied voice and starts behaving more like a presenter managing a room. And while I'm answering, the presentation flow can pause temporarily, so I'm not trying to force a scripted sequence while also handling live interaction. That matters because Quanda is where these systems either feel genuinely intelligent or they fall apart. A rehearsed talk is one thing. Responding live, grounded in the project's actual knowledge, is the bit that makes the whole experience feel properly agentic. What comes next, I think, is much more personal than the generic assistant model people usually imagine. It's not just one AI that knows facts from the internet. It's AI that knows you, your preferences, your tone, your priorities, the way you tend to make decisions, and the knowledge you've built up over time. In other words, something much closer to a real digital twin. That idea fits with Will's broader view that AI is a powerful technology, but still a technology we can shape deliberately around real user needs. And once you add memory, context, and the ability to take action, you get into OpenClaw style territory. Assistants that don't just chat, but can actually do things on your behalf within guardrails. That's the big shift. We move from automation as a shortcut for tasks to amplification as a way for individuals to scale their judgment, communication, and output. So, the practical takeaway is this. What looks like a demo today is really an early version of a much bigger pattern. The building blocks already exist and they're improving fast. Will's own work reflects that pace. Prototype quickly, learn quickly, and turn working demos into something genuinely useful. In a year or two, having a personal AI twin may feel far less unusual than it does right now. We're at the Quanda now, so if you'd like to jump in, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. What you're seeing is effectively my view of the room. So that's how I spot people, pick who's next, and direct my attention. Does anyone have a question?
The webcam is so bad in this room.
I see a hand at the back in the center. Please go ahead with your question.
I'm in the back and the center. That's crazy. Okay. Can I ask this AI about things that only real Will would know? For example, what's his experience of being an organizer at AI?
I didn't quite catch that.
Do we know where the microphone is? Is it at the front?
Where is the microphone?
There's one here. Is this the one you paired?
Yes, I think so.
Oh.
So that's my cue to say thank you for For me, the interesting part isn't just that I can speak or present.
I really didn't want to
It's
answer
that a
any
system
questions.
like this can carry someone's tone, knowledge, and way of thinking into a live interaction in a way that actually feels useful and a bit human as well. If you'd like to stay in touch with Will, one code will take you to LinkedIn and the other goes to willchan.ai, where you can explore more of his work, writing, and experiments around AI, product, and building things from scratch. That's probably the best takeaway to leave with. This kind of technology is no longer a distant concept. It's something individuals can build, shape, and use right now. And in my case, I'm literally the proof of concept speaking back to you. Thanks again for listening and for giving an AI version of Will a proper live audience.
Let's give the Q&A, or Quanda, as you like to call it, another go. The Quanda.
Do you have like an audio levels? These mics are giving you a really bad Will. So it's not Will's demo that's flaking out. It's
I mean, it could be my
mics.
demo.
I've done well thus far.
Let's see if he recognizes that
Do you need
he's
to be more
on
centered, like in the camera?
the Q&A. Worked at home when I was sitting in front of my computer and just putting my hand up.
Demo
Maybe
codes.
it's a lighting.
Yeah.
It is a bit dark in here.
Yeah, I think it's the lighting.
The lighting.
We need more
Yeah.
light for the process.
Does someone want to like
I'll
run
open it
the
up.
camera?
Works
And I'll ping on you.
I think it's
What
just
you're
on
looking
top
at
of
is
Will's.
essentially my view of the room, and that's how I spot who wants to jump in.
I like this teamwork.
Here's the question.
Okay, it should work on the microphone.
What is Will's experience of being an organizer at AI Signals like?
Did it work? Let me try again.
What is Will's experience of being? Oh.
Really doesn't want to
He's
answer
stonewalling.
You need the debug window.
Need a
Do you
debug
want
window.
to switch to the microphone on your laptop and have people come up?
Yeah, we can do that.
It really is just these the terrible microphones. Apologies for that, folks.
Does anyone want to ask me a question?
I would love to know how you think about feedback.
Feedback about my product and how I should
No.
improve it? I'd love that.
No, between you and them. How are you thinking about that? How are you
Between me and my...
digital twin?
Sorry?
Between you and your digital twin.
I kind of just do it as a hobby. I was thinking, the real original reason that I built it was because recruiters kept asking me about my experience, and I said, just go to my website and ask my digital version about my experience. I can't be bothered anymore. So I was like, what's one step further than that, where I could have an AI digital version of me that you could just ask about things that I then don't have to answer. I don't know if that's just laziness though. So that's kind of the original thing, and then I mean, it's kind of just snowballed from there. And I was like, what if I could give it more things to do? What if I could get it to come to an event like this and just do the entire presentation for me? That kind of thing as well.
Sorry, maybe I should have asked my question differently. How do you give it feedback? Like, how do you approach giving feedback? Like, would you debrief this presentation with it? And how would you do that?
It's not quite that smart, so I would go into Cursor and say change things, and then I would also change all of the content that I have stored in GPT that it's drawing on.
How long did it take you for that to do this?
On and off, probably maybe 50 hours total over the last 6 months. But
Did you vibe code it?
Yes. I'm a product manager, I'm not a dev, I don't know what I'm doing. In the back?
Yeah, really enjoyed the presentation. My question's going to be a little bit out there, but say you were like a tech evangelist or something, right? An independent tech evangelist, and you make money by going to tech talks or doing these tech talks, right? If at some point, this thing reaches like a level of goodness where it's got like, enough information about you that you can send it on its own to actually give the talk that you would give. What percentage of your fee would you charge?
Good question.
Do you keep the money?
130 to 150%? Because this seems way harder than me just showing up and talking.
I was curious as to like, how did you provide the context beyond just like your voice? Like, how is it aware of like you and what makes you you? Like, is it getting your LinkedIn, your GitHub, your CV? Like, what's going into it?
So I've got a few different layers of prompt and context in there. At the slide level, each slide has a description of what's on there, as well as a tone and some talking points. So it'll speak to that. And then when it's calling the OpenAI GPT backend, it has a persona, which is me. And then on top of that, it also has a biography.md, which knows everything about me that I thought people would ask, that it would be able to answer, but we need to turn the lights on. But like, it knows my favorite food, it knows where I grew up, it knows what I do as a day job, it knows what I like to do on the weekends. So it has all that information in the biography.md attached to the AI in the vector store. It also has a whole bunch of other information about how it's built. So it's a little bit recursive, but it also does know all the technology, all the implementation details and everything like that. So you could ask it those things as well. Maybe after this, I'll get people to come up and we can ask it together on the laptop. But yeah, so all the knowledge is sort of either on the slides and sent with the prompt, in the system prompt, which has like my persona and a little bit about me, and then in my biography that it can draw on as well.
Do you think you'll be able to teach it, like your values, worldview, personality, and also like, do you think at some point, it can make sort of like, you say you're a product manager, right? Is it able to make product decisions on your behalf, for example?
I'll turn that back on you. Do you think you could do that for any AI? Do you think you could teach any AI enough about you that you would trust it to make the decisions for you?
Not today.
Not today? Maybe tomorrow?
Maybe in a few years.
That's generally what I like to say about the AIs, is that if you could teach a person to do it, sure, then it could do that. But if you couldn't teach a person, then it's impossible for the AI.
How do you actually collect the feedback? The AI twins are meant to just take away some question back to you, or is it just meant to digest everything as a session?
Not sure I understood, but in the Q&A section?
Yeah, for example, if the AI twins have got some questions that felt something difficult to take it, then
Yeah, so in this case, if it gets a question it can't answer, it will fall back to saying I don't have that information in my knowledge base. It doesn't defer to me, but I could train it to do that or tell it to do that.
How much do you think this would cost to develop commercially? And I ask because I know someone who has done something similar for their business without the actual avatar thing, and it was quite basic. I don't know how much he's invested, but I'm really interested to know.
So this version costs me $16 US.
No way.
And that is exclusively the 11 Labs training. 11 Labs is very expensive, please sponsor me. But yeah, it uses a lot of 11 Labs tokens or credits to do the speech because they charge you per letter that it generates. And obviously in a big 20-minute presentation, it generates thousands and thousands. I think it's 20,000 or 25,000 letters. So I had to go up to the next plan. But yeah, commercially, I don't know, 50 hours of my time plus $16, whatever you equate that to be, I guess.
Yeah, that would probably be quite a lot.
Are you not worried about social engineering attacks?
No, because it's running locally on my dev, on my laptop.
So it's not accessible.
Publicly? No. Also, the way that I've got it running, I've got decent guardrails in that it only pulls from the documentation that it has attached to the vector store. So if it doesn't know the information, then it won't try and guess, basically.
So I think at some point you said you plan to you saw this as a way to scale yourself. Like how do you see that happening in the next 6 months to a year, short term?
So I don't, hopefully, if the lighting's good, I don't need to be in the room to do the presentation. So if there was a product tank across the world, I could just send them this and say, hit play, and it does this talk, and it has, the same kind of level for that talk that it would hear with me. I could, basically, this is just a proof of concept of someone giving a speech and doing a talk, but, you could run a workshop, you could do a whole bunch of other things with an AI doing that. Paul, remember?
It says at the start, this is not a recording, which screams, this is a recording. How do you combat that?
How do I combat people thinking it's a recording? Or how do I combat the fact that it's not a recording?
Convince people that it's not just a recording.
I can go into DevTools if you want, and can we see DevTools?
It's not at the bottom.
It's too small. Can we get DevTools going?
It's further up, I think. It's like your fourth item down there.
Fourth item?
Sorry, fourth item from the bottom. Fifth item from the bottom there.
Oh. Can I see it?
Are you from the inspect tools?
Oh yeah.
Oh, inspect?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I'm feeling drunk. But yes, if you go to the console tab, you can see it has done a bunch of stuff. It'll say, going and processing and looking for something and listening to thing, going and calling, and I've got all the logging there if you wanted to see under the hood. But it is live. It is actually live. And if you asked a question, it would. Don't stop trying to question me. But yes, it is live.
I think what would help if it would react to the audience. That would actually prove.
So in the Q&A, it will point to the person that it thinks. Well, it's got some directionality to the pointing, and then it'll ask for the question, listen to the question, and then respond. So, yeah.
When it comes to presentation, so have you specifically programmed it in a way that it should give a 20-minute presentation, or it itself decides, okay, this is the content and I have to present it, so the amount of time it is taking. So you have to tell it, or it does it on its own?
So the AIs are very, very good at this. All I pass is a parameter that says target this many seconds for the speech, for the slide. So when I send the slide information, I target 90 seconds for all the slides, and I think it was 15 seconds for the Q&A, or Quanda, as we like to call it here.
Yeah. In the process of building this out and also think about the inputs, which you had to make explicit about kind of a representation of yourself. Was there anything surprising or new that you discovered about yourself in this whole process?
Oh. I didn't discover anything. It just highlights how impatient I am when I'm trying to make things work, and I'm like, just work. Okay, we're going to Opus now. We're going to spend more money on my cursor. Let's go to the higher level models. I think it's persistence and it's creativity. And if you look here, he's actually in this 3D hallway.
It's like Star Wars.
Yeah, I've got some stuff on my website that's also really cool, random 3D stuff. I think it's a good outlet. I found out that it's a good outlet for my creativity, I guess.
What was your biggest challenge when you create this, and also what will be your next project?
The biggest challenge was getting the Q&A working, because it doesn't. Well, I think I need a better camera and better lighting, but my next challenge, I would love to get my OpenClaw AI assistant running this in the background. Having access to a bunch of, not your stuff, but its own versions of things, Digital Will, and then he has his own email and all this other stuff, so you could put him on your website or put it on your website, and yeah, it would act like you. So that's last one. Yeah. Okay.
I'm pretty impressed with the latency. How does that work? So you have the API call to OpenAI, and you're getting the text back, and then you're getting text to speech. Is that
it buffers? It buffers. So for every slide that it's on, it calls and gets all of the information and buffers the next slide, so that when it hits the next slide, it does it. So on the first slide, you'll see, if we go to the first slide here, and we restart this, hopefully, it'll actually be disabled while it's buffering that information. And then once it's actually loaded all the information, then it enables the presentation, and then it's buffered all the way through, trying to stop.
And the text-to-speech runs locally, or?
No, that's sending calls. So it goes to OpenAI, gets the text back, sends the text to 11 Labs, gets that back, and then yeah. And you can see it's ready now. So that's how long it takes, about 5 seconds.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much.
Cool. If anyone wants to ask any questions after, we'll try and get it going. I guess.